Welcome to the Soul Archaeology podcast, a space for connection, resonance, witnessing, and learning. Together we'll harvest medicine from the spiral of life, sharing conversations with other embodied humans who have navigated their own initiations and found alignment with their true soul essence. With weekly astrology, energy updates, embodied conversation, and channeled teachings, this is a space for you to land and find resonance with the spiral of your own soul. Hello, welcome back to Soul Archaeology. Did we all survive the Aries pressure cooker of last week? It was actually quite amazing to feel that energy build, to feel it kind of climax on Friday, to still be in the intensity of it as we move into this week. But there is some stabilization this week. We have the sun moving into Taurus. We have Mars meeting with Saturn, which is quite stabilizing actually, because Mars has just been on a rampage since it entered Aries, and when it meets with Saturn, it's going to have a little bit of a checkpoint, a stabilization. It could feel like frustration. It could feel like delays or a hindrance of some sort, but we actually need this. We need Saturn to check us on what we're doing, what we're saying, how we're responding, how we're reacting. So this week does have some energy of stabilization, which will be, I'm sure, welcomed. This energy isn't bad. That's something I keep telling people. It's not negative, right? We have forward momentum and movement and mobilization that might feel really good for some people. It's actually needed for many of us. However, it can also feel really destabilizing, really activating for those of us who have systems that are sensitive to this more sympathetic heat, fire activity in the system. It's like being jolted awake. And I will say, what this energy has been doing over the last 2 weeks has been revealing where we are living in illusion, where we are hoping things will just get better, where we are perhaps dissociating or escaping reality or even fawning in different aspects of our lives. And it's tricky because we've been in this really intense Piscean energy. So it has been foggy and unclear, and there hasn't been a lot of clarity, honestly, to work with. We haven't had a lot of direction and even discernment to help us move forward and choose differently. So it's a bit unfair, honestly. It's a little intense. We've been sort of under anesthesia for close to 2 years with the intensification of this Piscean energy. And now we've been hooked up to this generator that's turning everything back on. So it's almost like waking up from anesthesia and still being under surgery in a lot of ways, which can be jolting and alarming and very confronting. So be gentle with yourself. This is not a time to react or respond or to move necessarily. For some people, yes, like if there's something that you've been brewing on and sort of been thinking about for a long time, this might be the right corridor for you. This might be the perfect gateway, pathway for you to act, to mobilize, to do the thing. And for others, it might not be the right time. This time is very, very personal to our own personal charts. It's very nuanced. The thing about this energy, and I hosted an in-person workshop over the weekend, and everyone was saying that there's not a lot to work with right now. There's a lot of pressure, a lot of sort of like urgency around making a decision or doing something, changing something, leaving something, whatever it is, but there's not a lot of clarity. And that is the nature of now. Neptune is bringing the confusion. It's not a clarifier. And so we're having to do some trust falls right now. That might look like taking a leap of faith, doing the thing, taking action. And it might look like waiting. It's very, very personal to you, to your chart. It's nuanced. It's not black or white. But even if you are moving forward, you might feel like you're doing so without being prepared, without knowing what's ahead, without even having all of the data or information. And that's uncomfortable. I totally understand. We've also been confronted with realities and truths over the last few weeks that maybe we weren't even ready for. That's the nature of Aries. It's baptism by fire. It doesn't wait until we're ready. It's ready to go already. It's a lot of readies. We also had the new moon in Aries meeting with Chiron. So we had this sort of intensification of our core wounds over the last week. And that is really uncomfortable. The sun met with Chiron on the 16th. On the 17th, the moon did as well. We had this really intense conjunction between the sun, the moon, and Chiron. So everything was lit up. The deepest, darkest corners of our fears, our psyche, self-worth, identity, power, confidence, all of it has been up. And I said this in my 2026 forecast workshop. April is the match that lights this very fast, very big, very intense flame that will continue through August. So yes, we'll have periods of sort of stabilization and maybe slowing down a little bit, but what is in motion now is in motion. There's so much shifting beneath our feet, things we can't even see, subterranean pieces and parts that are coming online, beginning to engage, beginning to mobilize. There has to be a whole lot of faith here. Like I said, whatever choice you're making right now, make it the right choice. Choose it fully. Believe in God, believe in Source to support you through this. We need conviction to move through this time. It doesn't mean we need, blind faith necessarily, but we have enough data now, hopefully, to believe in something, to believe in ourselves, to believe in God, to believe in Source, to believe in a higher power, our guides, our support. That's what this Piscean energy was having us do, is dig deeper, anchor deeper, find something more to believe in. And now this is where it all gets put into play. We are in the actual game now, and we get to bring that faith with us through this. That's what sustains us. That's what keeps us moving forward. That's what helps us feel supported in very uncertain times. So yes, this is kind of tricky energy to navigate. It's a gift to have this forward motion and momentum, and it can be so supportive. And for those of us that orient more towards a fawn or type of freeze in our systems, it can feel like a lot to have this much activation. So just be gentle. Be gentle with yourself. Allow yourself to ebb and flow through it. It's not meant to be perfect. You don't have to figure it all out overnight. Yes, there's a lot of confrontation right now. There might be revelations around ways you've been escaping, dissociating. And it doesn't all have to be addressed at the same time. So I do think this week we'll receive some clarity, some stabilization, maybe even Mars starting to move away from Neptune will help to bring clarity, to give us sort of a game plan, a roadmap, a pathway. Mars and Saturn both like to move forward. They're sort of future-oriented. Saturn likes structure, pacing, containment, planning, consistency. Mars in Aries is a little bit more reckless at times, and so this might feel like the gas and the brake are on at the same time, and that's normal. It might feel frustrating. It might feel like there's this touch and go. On April 19th, they are conjunct exactly in Aries, and this energy really continues through early next week. And on that same day, April 19th, the sun enters Taurus. So Taurus season begins, which I'm just so ready for. It's my favorite season. I'm ruled by Venus. My chart is very Venusian, and I love the grounded Venusian energy of Taurus. So right when the sun enters Taurus, Venus exits. So does Uranus. So on April 23rd, Venus meets with Uranus at the last degree of Taurus. And then shortly after that, Venus enters Gemini, which means Venus and Uranus are meeting at the last degree of Taurus before they both shift into Gemini. 2 days later, on April 25th, Uranus enters Gemini, which is one of the more significant shifts of 2026 and something that will really define the next 8 years. I've talked a lot about this. I talked a lot about it in the 2026 forecast workshop, which you can still buy, by the way. You get a whole workbook with it. You get a planner, you get a calendar that has the transits each month, how to work with it, journal prompts. You also get the recording, and you get the journey that goes along with it that you can repeat throughout the year. Many people I talk to do the journey consistently, and it really keeps this alignment throughout the year. And we're not even at the halfway mark, so plenty of time to still get it if you're interested in learning about what this year has in store for us. So we start this week with the Mars-Saturn conjunction in Aries. There's pressure here. Mars wants to move. Saturn slows, contains, refines. Saturn also wants to move. It just wants to be more sure, more precise. It has a sort of a longer trajectory in mind when it's considering how it acts and what it does. It's bringing in this influence, this maturation that can really be helpful for this Mars and Aries energy. But it can also feel like friction and restraint and even confrontation with our limits, with maybe even a boundary or a sign from the universe that can feel like a limit. We might receive this energy in a different way than it's actually intended. Saturn really wants us to mature. It wants us to do things differently. It wants us to learn and evolve through actions and choice that are more evolved, essentially. Mars in Aries just wants to act. It wants to respond. It wants to move, wants to be mobile. So when this energy gets slowed down, it can feel like constraint or blocked movement, frustration. It can feel like you're questioning yourself, or you're frustrated that something within you or something outside of you is blocking you from what you really want. Also, this feeling that you should be further along, which is so in the field right now. It's part of what Saturn and Aries is bringing in general, is this feeling that you're running out of time. Saturn rules time. Aries is fast. So those two energies together, it can just feel like time is slipping through your fingers. Add Mars to the mix, it can feel like you should be further along, you're behind. But this is not a block. This is refinement. This is a pause, an opportunity to stop and consider if there's a different way, a more evolved, a more conscious, intentional way of moving forward. It's really a checkpoint. And I think that Saturn's role in Aries at this time is to slow things down a little bit, is to bring more consciousness, more light, more intention, more clarity, more maturation to some of this fast-paced energy. By the end of the week, with Uranus moving into Gemini, it's going to feel like the fast forward button is being pressed. So if you think it feels fast now, Uranus moving into Gemini is going to speed everything up, because Uranus is the vehicle that our collective transformation moves from, does its quantum leaps. So Saturn is helpful right now. Saturn is helping us titrate change. It's helping us check, are we moving from a wound, or are we moving from the heart? Are we moving from fear? Are we moving from pressure or urgency or scarcity? Or are we moving from our higher self, the self that knows that pacing is important, that titration is important, that reactivity never gives us what we truly desire? And then the sun on that same day entering Taurus, now this gives us a nice shift in energy as well. The sun entering fixed earth, from cardinal fire to fixed earth. So we move from this pressure, urgency to more stabilization. Uranus and Gemini is going to keep the pacing fast, but there's at least some room within this to stabilize, to ground, to utilize the earth as a source of support and containment, belonging and orientation. It brings us from the mind back to the body. And then on the 23rd, we have this meeting between Venus and Uranus at the last degree of Taurus. And these two energies are meeting at the last degree of Taurus right before Venus shifts, but more significantly, right before Uranus shifts. And this is the last time we will experience Uranus in Taurus in our lifetime. And Uranus entered Taurus in 2018. It's been the great destabilizer of what we thought was solid and secure. This transit really worked slowly and relentlessly, shaking the foundations of value, security, embodiment, survival. It asked us to confront where our sense of safety was outsourced to systems, resources, structures that were never designed to hold true stability, that were ready for change. Our relationship with food, land, money, resources was all disrupted. And we know that, right? 2018, what happened in the beginning of 2020, COVID. We've moved through an entire deep collective rupture within this Uranus and Taurus transit. This transit really exposed the illusion of permanence on the material plane. Taurus rules the material world. It revealed how deeply fear lives in the body, how we cling to what's familiar, how afraid of death we are as a collective, and how that is eroding our culture, quite literally, our relationship with permanence and fear of death is wreaking havoc within our collective. And it really taught us that security cannot be guaranteed. Everything is shifting. Everything is changing within our collective. The systems we thought would always be there are no longer stable. Like, we can feel that they're getting ready to shift. And this is so significant. As this transit completes this week, I mean, we've been feeling this heavily over the last 6 months, especially. We're left with this deeper understanding that true stability comes from adaptability, embodiment, that true stability comes from an anchor in something deeper, that we can no longer rely only on the systems created by humans, that there's a deeper truth, a deeper anchor, a deeper stability, one that cannot be messed with by greed and corruption, which is just so rampant still within our collective consciousness. Security must be cultivated internally. That is what Uranus and Taurus has taught us. And it's shaken us down to our roots, down to our foundations. When I think about my values, they are so different than they were in 2018. And of course, I'm sure that's true for a lot of people. Our values are meant to shift as we evolve and change and grow and go through maturational thresholds. But I think a huge part of it for me is the world and the way it is and how it's changed, and the fact that in 2018, I still really relied on systems. I still believed in systems. I still had a lot of faith in the government, quite frankly. It was definitely waning, but it was much more than I have now. I was giving my power away in so many ways. And now I think about where I am and what I'm focusing on. And it's sovereignty. It's building a world that can exist outside of the current one. It's building a new earth and not relying on these systems to stay safe, to feel secure. That will sink like the Titanic, quite frankly. This is not a time to grip to these systems that will fail because they have to. They're dissolving. So a new world, a new earth can be born. And I think this Uranus and Taurus transit really has been a huge change maker, a huge player in this dissolving of the old world and building of a new one. And then we have Uranus entering Gemini on April 25th until 2033. So this is a revolution of the mind. It's radically reshaping how we think, how we communicate, how we learn, how we quite literally perceive reality. Uranus is the higher mind. Gemini is the rational mind. So this is all about, quite frankly, creating new systems, mental liberation, nervous system rewiring. There's going to be breakthroughs in communication, language, and information. Uranus is the vehicle for change, collective evolution. So when we think about that, Pluto is doing this deep collective rewiring. It's forcing us to look at our shadows. It's dissolving. Uranus is the vehicle for that change. So Uranus gets to go in and dissolve and force change, quite frankly, the things that aren't working, and open up opportunities to see what could be. It's very revolutionary. It's very innovative. So there's definitely a disruption. There's technological and informational acceleration. There's a lot of opportunity here to work with the fast, mutable air of Gemini with Uranus here. The other side of this is that it's incredibly fast. Things move quickly. It's similar to having an upgrade in systems. So this is like, I feel like this Uranus and Gemini transit is going to be moving from analog to high-speed quantum internet. I don't even know what that means, but I just feel like the way we move through life will change so rapidly between now and 2033. And Uranus has a lot to do with that. It also has to do with advancements in how we see the human as the most advanced technology on the planet. Not, what we're developing with AI necessarily, but the human. And that we have way more capacity to upgrade our own software. When we move out of fear, when we move out of scarcity, when we are able to access unconditional love and the potentials within the quantum field. This is telepathy. This is time travel. This is the stuff that we have always seen in sci-fi movies, but there's an expansion here. Now, I think this transit will also bring a lot in the way of AI. We're already at this point where we're reaching the singularity point. There is a shift in consciousness that is going to be rapid. It can feel incredibly destabilizing. We experienced the shift of Uranus into Gemini in July of last year. It was a very hot, heated, intense few months when it was there. It retrograded back. Now we're going to be here for 8 years. So this is where we get to integrate the work we've done with Uranus and Taurus. Groundedness, rooting, anchoring, returning to the analog. Even though everything's changing, we still get to choose how we interact with it. We get to choose to slow things down. We don't have to be plugged in. We don't have to be on this roller coaster strapped in without agency. And this week, with Venus meeting with Taurus, or Venus meeting with Uranus at the last degree of Taurus, there's certainly a lot coming up around safety, security, values, resources. What has been the theme over the last 8 years for you? Have you had relational patterns, specifically money patterns? A lot of this has to do with money because Venus is connected to money, Taurus is connected to money. Uranus has been completely disrupting the financial system over the last 8 years. And it has quite a bit of work it's going to continue to do within that realm. I think we've seen the breakdown of a financial system. We've seen what doesn't work anymore. We've seen the ways in which we've reached this point in capitalism where it's no longer working, it's no longer sustainable, but we know everything else doesn't work either. Socialism, communism, fascism, like these things don't work, right? We need an entirely new system that is built on the quantum field, a system that is liberating for humans, that is of a higher consciousness. That's the new system. And I do think that Uranus and Gemini is going to bring us there. However, we have to dissolve our attachments to the old system. And I think that that's what this Venus and Taurus and Uranus and Taurus conjunction is going to bring up for us, is how are we still attached to the old ways? Or where are we fixed? Where are we rooted in ways that is both supportive, but also unsupportive and unsustainable? So our relationship with money, our security within relationships is going to be up this week. This is also a really good week with both Venus and Uranus entering Gemini to stay off the internet, stay off devices, ground, root, get into some water, lay on the earth, sit against a tree, return to the earth. That is the medicine. That is what we need right now. And it's going to feel electric as we move into this Gemini energy. I think through June, especially, July is highly active with these Jupiter activations too. So on the 25th, Uranus enters Gemini. I'll be talking a lot about this transit over the next few weeks. We have a whole lot of time with Uranus and Gemini, so there's plenty of time to integrate it, to really understand it on a deeper level. But we end the week with this Sun-Pluto square, and the Sun is in Taurus by this time. Pluto is in Aquarius, so it starts on the 25th. And this is intense. We have, anytime we have a square to Pluto, any planet, there's an intensity here. There's a pressure to transform. Taurus wants stability. Pluto demands transformation. So we get this tension between holding on and needing to change. This is also in a fixed square. So the Sun in Taurus, fixed Earth, Pluto in Aquarius, fixed air. So there's a showdown. There's some sort of standoff around beliefs, communications, systems, stability, security, money. Like I said, I think this is going to be a significant money week. I don't know exactly what that means. I'm not super into the financial world, but there's definitely going to be some shakeups. There's going to be some ego this week, of course. There's been a lot of ego in the field, collectively, and what's happening on the world stage. This can feel like power struggles. It can even feel internally like an internal resistance, a fear of letting go. But there's a strong evolutionary purpose here. Pluto's revealing where something is no longer aligned, so we have to believe it. We have to trust it. We have to lean into it. It probably feels like you're reaching a breaking point somewhere in your life, in some sector of your life. Where are you being asked to let go? Where are you being asked to trust deeper? Where are you being asked to slow down and refine? What is ready to shift? Like I said, this doesn't all have to happen overnight. There's no pressure here. But if you have been dissociating or escaping making a decision, if you've been putting it off, you're likely going to have to confront it in some way, shape, or form this week. Titrate it. Be with it. Notice when you're dissociating. Maybe you can bring in something nourishing instead, something that's really supportive and loving, something that grounds and stabilizes you. Instead of just escaping to escape and maybe leaning into dopamine, maybe you can lean into something that's nourishing, something that's stabilized, something you can trust. The card that I pulled today is the Wind card, which makes sense because we are entering an era of Gemini for sure. And it says, weightless and invisible, wind holds the secrets of all that came before this moment and all that will arise. She is air in its most active form, creating patterns by drawing in and releasing. She brings fresh energy to multidimensional pursuits and helps clear up insoluble problems. Her significance in the body is to serve as an ambassador between physical and spirit realms, sustaining life force in the forms of breath. Wind is a reminder of the transformative power of breath work. Whether you resonate with morning breathing meditations or simply commit to bringing more awareness into your breath throughout the day, there is no faster way to transform both your immediate and long-term realities. Just a strong breeze clears the air. Breathing it with intention helps process emotions, release stuck energy, cleanse blood, reinforce the soul's stabilization within the body, and tune into a more conscious way of perceiving the world. Though there are both elaborate and simple ways to harness the power of your breath, your intention to connect with this powerful force is what brings about transformation. When it's balanced, you habitually enlist breath to move easily. When it's imbalanced, you're unconsciously holding the breath, blocked emotions, and numbness. to bring into balance, bring regular, simple awareness to your breath. And I love this so much because I think that awareness of breath is incredible. And there, of course, are many different types of breath work. This is an ancient study. There are many ancient practices, many lineages that you can work with. I think it's important to really attune to your own body. Sympathetic breath work is not for everyone. You don't always need to be processing in that intense way, but there are also like really beautiful yin, more parasympathetic breath works that can be incredible. So maybe you want to be more in processing, more in sympathetic, or maybe you want to be more in that parasympathetic space because you're already doing enough processing anyway. Regardless, maybe just bring some intention to your breath. It can just be noticing it before you fall asleep or when you wake in the morning, or maybe setting an alarm on your phone throughout the day to just check in. Just notice. Something else that's really powerful is to just notice if you're breathing all the way into your back. That has been incredibly transformative for me, is making sure I'm breathing into my back, not into my belly. Yes, into my belly, but not just focusing on that, focusing on expanding my diaphragm into the back of my diaphragm too. So there are many practices for that and you can kind of look them up, but wind is calling, breath is calling. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you as always for your support, for listening. Follow me on Substack, subscribe. It's $8 a month. I do 2 monthly updates on their articles, deeper dives, personal shares. It's a great way to support the production of this podcast because I don't take any sponsors and I don't have any ads. So I do it all on my own. So it would be amazing to have the support through Substack. If you listen regularly, thank you for being here. Thank you for